longevity junkie, it's time to get your fix. I'm Nikki Lee.
I'm Buck Joffrey.
And today we talk with internationally renowned leader in children's environmental health, Dr. Leonardo Trasande. And I think we're going to talk to Buck about some of his residency stories. Is that right, Buck?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, because we're always finding stories on Reddit. And I'm sure as a surgeon, you probably have some really crazy stories to share yourself.
Yeah, I do. And I thought, hey, I'm happy to share them. Some of those people are dead now, so I can not the patients. Well, in some cases the patients, but
first, of course, we will catch up. So, Buck, how you doing? Where you at? What you up to?
Yeah, I'm totally stressed out still. I'm in like business stress hell, but I think I'm starting to see maybe a little bit of a end of the rainbow.
Seeing the light?
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
Good.
You know what's kind of funny, by the way? I saw you on Hinge.
Did you?
Yeah, I liked you.
Oh,
I put down. Yeah, I sent you a message actually.
I'm still going through the list. It's like I can go to the heart and it tells me like all the people who have liked me, and I have to go through them all in order to get to the people that I want.
I know, but you can ignore me. I was just being silly.
No, but I love that.
It was kind of funny.
You signed up. The freaking dating world.
Now you know that she really is on Hinge. She really is.
I am. I know now. I swear there are people going on Hinge right now.
How is that going for you? It's going.
I mean, I've gone on a date, and I've talked to some really great people. Like our conversations are really great, like in depth. So one of the features on Hinge that I am totally obsessed with, and that I seem to point out to anyone who matches with me, is the voice notes. Like instead of the texting in the chat, like I do the voice. And everyone that I do that to, which is anyone who matches with me, basically, they're always like, wow, this is such a great feature. I love hearing your voice, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, because being on an app is it's so disconnecting from human social existence, in my opinion, that I'm like, I need something that makes me feel like I'm still human.
Like more human?
Yeah, exactly.
Not just like in a catalog?
Right. So I do the little voice notes. So I just like that because I also hope that they reply back so I can hear their voice, because voice matters. Like there is definitely a chemistry with our tonality and things like that. And I have been instantly attracted to somebody and instantly unattracted to somebody. So
yeah, really?
Voice,
interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or give us guys some tips here. How do we sound more attractive?
Honestly, well, okay, and I respect everybody. This is gonna
go say it. Just say it. Just say it. It's a fact.
So yes, it is. So I mean, I am personally into males being in their masculine, right? In their divine masculine, and I want to be in my feminine. So one thing for me is just having a more masculine voice. Like there are some beautiful people out there with, more of a, I don't know, flamboyant or I just fucked myself.
No, I'm just, the images are coming into my head.
It's horrible right now. Yeah. I want my masculine to be masculine. I want to be able to be in my feminine. So if I have if there's a guy that's a little too like, oh my God, like I just want to do this. Like I don't even sound like that.
Right.
So I get unattracted fast.
Really?
So,
well, that's a great tip, actually.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Be more in your masculine. Like,
would my voice be tell me the truth. Would my voice be a pro or a con for me?
You have a good voice.
Okay, good. So maybe I should add that because could use some more luck.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think your voice is good. It's not like, I just like direct, like more masculine, like I'm saying, like let's like floaty and they're feminine. Yeah.
Fair enough. I think it's a great tip. Well, we normally do Reddit stories, or not normally, but we've been doing Reddit stories, right?
Which are cool.
And actually, we were going to do one, but then the one that the producer, Phil Ferragamo, who was a wonderful producer, put together was just like so crude.
No, I want to know crude. It's more fun now.
Well, it was kind of just gross. And so I
Oh,
was like, no, come on. We're not
oh,
going
now I
there.
got to hear about this
But what I
eventually.
offered instead is like, I was like, you know what? Nikki might have some questions for me about, I was a surgical resident and I have lots of stories and,
Yeah. Oh, I
and
would love to learn. So, okay, well, I don't even know all of the types of surgeries that you were
yeah.
doing, you know? I feel like we got to start there. So, what's one what sticks out in your mind the most when you're like, "Oh my god, this is shocking."
Oh, shocking wise.
Yeah.
Well, shocking wise, I'll tell you. I was going to tell you a story because one of the things that always like cracked me up about residency, surgical residency,
Mhm.
was sort of like, I don't know, just we just have surgeons have just sort of a different like view of the world. You just see things
Sure.
and on a routine basis, and you don't really think about them the same way as other people. And I was thinking about like this teacher I used to have when I was a surgical intern. He was a surgeon. He was a very beloved general surgeon at the University of Michigan, and like he was the guy who taught like the surgical interns, the first year people, really how to operate a lot. But he was one of these old school guys. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. He was, this was a while ago. And he was like one of these old surgeons that was always like using his bare hands for stuff. Like when you go back and look at videos of dissections of human bodies being done by like, some guy in a lab in the 70s or 60s, they used to not even use gloves, right? Like they would
Oh, wow.
just, right. Anyway, so I think about like this story that sort of encapsulates kind of that mentality of like, just this different world and stuff. Was this one time it was me in the operating room with him and a more senior resident, because it was my first year, and he loved to teach and he was a really good teacher. And so it was like some butt case, because we always, he was a general surgeon. There was always butt stuff going on. Like, and that was pretty much, and
There's always
so
butt stuff going on in
yeah,
human
that
life, Buck.
and by the way, like that's why I did not like that kind of stuff. So I always sort of gravitated at that time towards, the above the neck stuff. But anyway, he wanted to demonstrate a reflex that was, that you hear about, that most people don't see. And it's called the anal wink. Okay. So like how you just winked at me. So this patient gets put to sleep, right? Like is in under anesthesia and is on her side and preparing for surgery. And he's like, you know, come on over here. Let me show you something that you just read about, you don't really hear about, but it's really interesting. So, and by the way, he's wearing this white coat over his scrubs at this time. So he comes over, stands over next to this patient, who's,
It's like, "Everyone gather around the axe."
naked and kind of like butt cheek spread, right? And he takes a pen from his top jacket pocket and he brushes it up against the patient's anus, and sure enough, anal wink. And we were all like, wow, anal wink, that's fantastic.
So funny.
But what was really the story here was that I specifically noticed that with that pen, he took that pen and put it
Put it
right
right
back
back
into
into his
his
pocket.
top pocket.
No.
And he wasn't using gloves or anything like that. And then we were all kind of like looking at each other, a little too scared to say anything. But then the rest, like even after the case, I saw him like take the pen out and start writing notes.
Did he put it in his mouth? Because I've chewed on pens before. Did he do that?
No,
Oh
no.
god.
I
No, but
didn't
not
see him
not
do
to where
that, but
you could see.
yeah. But the same guy, like
That's
he used to, and then there was another situation with the
bleh.
same guy who, like, he was, again, basically using his bare hands on stuff, and a lot of times in longer surgeries, you put in a Foley catheter, which is like
Mhm.
a little hose
The
so that
tube up the yeah.
patient can just the urine just comes out
Oh,
into
uh-huh.
this bag, so they don't have to pee,
Yeah.
and so again, this was another female patient, and I remember seeing him like there was a resident was struggling getting the Foley catheter in.
Mhm.
And so he's like, okay, well, hold on, let me let me just take care of that. And he comes over again with his bare hands and he spreads like, her parts and
The catheter?
puts in the catheter. And then he goes back and he sits back and, like he's paging through notes and he goes, and he
No, he
turns the
didn't.
page.
He did not
I
take
know.
his
How do you
finger
just
and lick
describe what
it.
I said for people listening?
Well,
Anyway.
he took his finger to lick when you're trying to unstick a page.
Right.
That's what he was doing. Right. Oh my God.
Anyway.
I wonder how he was during COVID. Like, did he?
I don't know. It sounds crazy, and but those are true stories.
They're just so used to it, and like being out in a human body, they're just not thinking. I
guess, but I guess we make a much bigger deal of like the gloves and stuff.
Touching.
I guess like these days, this guy. I mean, this guy was really old school. He probably trained back in the 60s or something like that. Who knows? But anyway, just thought I'd give you that. I have plenty of stories. Some of them shocking. Some of them. Scary.
More shocking stories.
Yeah, well, I'll think of them next time.
Okay.
But anyway, I thought that might give you a little bit of a.
No, that's super funny too. That's super funny, and that's so. Wait, with the anal wink, like was that because you said again a female? Was that's a universal?
That's a universal.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Everybody's winking at everybody there.
Everyone's winking. I'm gonna somehow drop that into my dinner conversation tonight.
Are you going to? Are you gonna?
I'm going to this like gala, like I'm really going to this charity gala for kids, and yeah, I think I'm going to be meeting someone's parents for the first time, so maybe that will be like my,
there you go. You can
icebreaker.
Talk about, tell them about the anal wink.
Exactly. I'm like, we all wink with our ass.
Yeah, we all wink. Anyway,
I'm getting married very soon.
On to more serious topics, I guess.
This is going to be such a great episode. I'm super excited. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to a renowned physician, researcher, and policy advocate at the forefront of the environmental health, Dr. Leonardo Trasande. Welcome back to Longevity Junkie. Time for our guest interview. It's The Breakdown with Dr. Leonardo Trasande. Dr. Leonardo Trasande is a physician, a scientist, a best-selling author known for his groundbreaking work on how environmental toxins like microplastics impact our health. He's a professional at NYU and a director of environmental pediatrics, leading global efforts to expose the hidden costs of chemical exposures on our hormones, longevity, and future generations. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Trasande.
It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
I am personally super excited for this subject specifically. I was telling Buck because I feel like there's so much research on this and we're getting more and more in the know about microplastics, but people still can't wrap their brain around it because it feels very new, but it has been in our lives for so long. And I'm just so excited to be able to bring this to the public and be able to bring like all this information that you have.
Well, delighted to shed any light I can share.
Great. You've described microplastics as a global public health threat. And I think there's a lot of people. I actually asked my friend on the way here if he knew what microplastics was. And he was like, well, let me break this down. Micro, like small, and plastics, like surgery, like small surgery. And I was like,
that's good.
Isn't that good? I was like, I am so glad I asked you this because that's crazy that you don't know what this is. So for the people out there, I want you to break down what microplastics are and how they're getting into our bodies, because are we threatened by the things of plastic all around us, like water bottles, or are we getting it through our food or even air? Like people just don't even understand what they are and how common they are in our life.
Happy to do it. So let's just nerd out a little bit for the basics of polymer chemistry. And my undergraduate degree is in chemistry, but that's where my expertise ends. So when plastics are made, they're basically boring molecules in that they're the same molecule chained together billions of times. That's really what a polymer boils down to. And there are certain situations where polymers have good characteristics and other situations where the product doesn't meet the need. So you have to add things on. That's the additive part to the mix. So polyvinyl chloride which is a polymer that's used in the pipes that line water supplies in Flint, Michigan, replacing lead pipes, is characteristically hard. When you make polyvinyl chloride food packaging, you add phthalates to soften the plastic and make it crinkly, give you that really, really cool feeling, and you get a feeling of safety because it adds a little antiseptic characteristic to it. Keeps germs from getting into food where you don't want them. To take one step back further, the feedstocks of plastic are based in generally fossil fuels. So when you either use oil or gas to make ethane or propane, and then you crack it to make ethylene or propylene, and then you polymerize it to make polyethylene or polypropylene. Now, I just talked about the synthetic process, how you make the plastic. Now let's talk about how it breaks down. When you break it down, a few different things happen at the same time. So heat and harsh conditions will break down the chemistry in various lengths of the molecule. It won't go all the way down to a single molecule very often. That's the monomer. And then there are different lengths of that chain that remain. So microplastics, generally, people debate what the exact length of it is, but when you see microplastics or nanoplastics, that's maybe a million long, 100,000 long of the same molecule repeated, but that still crystallizes. You see it. It's visible. One of the transformative events here in our understanding of plastics and human health is going from invisible chemicals used in plastic materials, where there's a host of research documenting health effects. And people don't really get their imagination grabbed when you think of invisible stuff. But when you talk about microplastics, like what generally around millimeter size and then down to nanoplastics, nanometer size, that's where, and you can see it either under a microscope or literally with your eyes. That's actually macroplastics, by the way, which is a whole different size dimension, but I don't want to get too much in the weeds. That grabs people's attention. They go, oh boy, that's not good. And so what's happened recently is we've become curious about plastics because they've become visible. And if there's a theme I can offer you to start, is we need to be as curious about the invisible, because we know much more about the health effects about the invisible chemicals used in plastics than we do about micro, macro, and nanoplastics.
So, Dr. Trasande, if I can interrupt, this is Buck.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try to give a visualization of this just for simplicity. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's probably a reasonable model just to break down in people's head to think of these, what you're talking about, polymers, is essentially like if you can imagine like putting like chains together, right? Like you putting one link after another link, identical links together. And that's kind of what you mean by a polymer, like visualization.
Right.
Is that?
You're
correct?
With me.
So, and I think that's an easy way to understand this. And then basically what you're saying is that you can break that thing down in certain, if you can think like different lengths of the chain, like, and at some point it gets to such few links that it's no longer visual. And that is a microplastic.
That's even less than a microplastic. That's nanoplastic or chemicals used in plastic.
But the point being that that's really what we're talking about is we've got these chains that are made to make these artificial things that we call plastic. And then, but like they get to the point where literally they're the same thing, but they become, either barely visible or non-visible.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense, Nikki? I just want to make sure for like non-scientists that we start with the basic.
I mean, I think so. What we're doing is breaking down what plastic is, and real like plastic, even like our Tupperwares and our, plastics, utensils or anything like that, or even maybe Ziploc bags.
Yeah. So what we're saying right now is that long polymer, that link of chains, that's what makes up the plastic.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can bring that down to a tiny, tiny
shards
number
of
of links.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So we got that. But one of the things that I think is most crucial about microplastics is that it's getting into our bodies. And I think people don't understand how common that is. So I would really love for you to help the public know, like, this is our cry out to let them know, like, these polymers and these, shards of plastic, very horrible to our health. How are we commonly ingesting them?
We're ingesting them through the food we eat. We're inhaling them in the air we breathe. They're contaminating the water supply. We sometimes used to use microbeads as treatments for skin to defoliate skin. That's not as much the rage anymore, but at a molecular level, these chemicals, our skin is really good at absorbing these chemicals and microplastics and nanoplastics directly as well.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've understood, it's so good. We're so good at taking these like microplastics, nanoplastics, all this into our bodies through common daily activities of, like you're saying, like women putting on makeup or even trying to wash our face, and we have those microbeads trying to exfoliate, and we don't understand that we're taking in these chemicals. And I'm trying to also think, like, why is this such a phenomenon right now? Like, we're finding,
like, is it a new phenomenon? Like, is it new, or is it just something we're discovering now? I guess is
so the microplastics and nanoplastics phenomenon was always there, but we couldn't tell. Okay. We didn't have the technology to tell. For about 20, 30 years, we knew that these chemicals were getting into our bodies. That's where I go back to this notion of the invisibility cloak being what has made it hard for people to really get. So bisphenol A, or BPA, you've seen BPA-free baby bottles and sippy cups, right? Bisphenol A is a monomer to polycarbonate plastics. It's that single molecule. For years, back in 2000, we had 99% of the U.S. population with detectable BPA in urine. So
in what?
In our we blood? Pee it out. Yeah, it's been in our urine. Yeah.
So let me take it sort of the next step, which is we now know about the microplastics. We've probably been exposed to them forever, and in fact, our generation, you and me, and we've probably been bathing in the whole thing, like, and not even knowing it.
Sounds like it.
What's I guess the question then becomes, like, okay, well, that doesn't sound good. What is this actually doing to us in terms of our bodies and maybe our endocrine system?
So there are two ways that microplastics and nanoplastics are probably acting in the human body. One is just as a brute wrecking ball to tissues. So they run around in our coronary arteries and scrape stuff up. They scrape the lining up, and then that lets fats get in, plaque forms. That's a good way to describe it. The more insidious way that we don't think about really starts to cross the streams, if you will, with some of the drugs we take for human benefit. So you think of those sustained release medications. Like, I happen to have a little bit of heartburn, so I take an acid prevention medication, so Meprazole, right? And
me too.
I mean, it's just, I like my coffee. What can I say? And so, that sustained release is actually based on nanopolymer chemistry. That the idea is that this plastic bead wears down over time in the acid that's left, and it just bit by bit releases the chemical. Now, that's for good, okay? That's for human health. And some of the novel advances in cancer therapy are using the same technology. They're trying to get right to a tissue. They know how to get this thing to a tissue by using polymer chemistry, and that's good. The problem is with these micro nanoplastics that are coming from products that had no human intention in mind, they're delivering toxic chemicals that are just hanging around for the ride. They grab metals, they grab pesticides, they grab phthalates that are sometimes used in the plastic in the first place to soften it. And that's the other problem. And those hack our hormones.
So I guess one of the things that I've heard just regarding hormones is sort of maybe there might be a link to some of the lower testosterone that this generation's men seems to have compared to, what we've seen in past generations. Is that something that's accurate?
Yes, but that's only one of the problems. This affects both sexes from cradle to grave, from womb to tomb. So hormones, I just need to take a step back of what they are, because that gets a little nerdy too.
Right.
So these are like traffic signal molecules. These are natural molecules that the body uses. We used to think it was just the thyroid gland, that thing around your neck, the little fleshy thing. You think about it when you think about testosterone and estrogen, male and female sex hormone, but it's actually much bigger than that. There are thousands of these signaling molecules that are sending things from one tissue or organ to another. Let's say if I want the heart to hear that I need to amp up my contractility, the pumping of the heart, you can use thyroid hormone made here to send a signal there to say, hey, step up your game. That's really what endocrine system is all about. So every biological function of humankind, temperature, metabolism, salt, sugar, and even sex, derives directly from that. The reason why you've heard about testosterone being hacked is it was the easiest thing to figure out as a problem in many ways. That, along with effects on developing brains of kids. Those are the two areas where we said, oh crap, this is a real problem. So phthalates, used again to soften these polyvinyl chloride plastics, they reduce testosterone function. And low T is a marker for or predictor of adult cardiovascular disease. So as much as everyone's going to talk about impotence or sperm count declining, and that's real. We've seen a decline globally in sperm count over the past 6
100%.
decades. And I'm not telling you the whole story there is chemicals, but a big part of the story is chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
What we know is that it's bigger than affecting men's sex life and affecting their fertility. We know now that phthalates kill 50,000 adults across the U.S. from heart disease. And that's because phthalates cause inflammation in the coronary arteries. And more recently, we had a confirmatory study saying that the levels of micro and nanoplastics in the neck, in the carotid artery, the polyvinyl chloride, mind you, the same one that uses phthalates in them, was associated with a 4-fold increase in heart attack, stroke, or death.
Oh my gosh.
When we think about, again, trying to put this together in terms of chronological order, the use it was what's that movie with Dustin Hoffman?
The Graduate.
The Graduate, right?
Yeah.
Where the guy says when he was thinking about investing, he's like, I've got the investment, and he says plastics. So the 60s really were the time when plastics really started taking off. Is that accurate?
Yes, there have only been 3 pauses in the exponential growth of plastic production. 1970s oil crisis, 2008 financial crisis, 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Other than that, the curve is straight up.
Yeah. So I wonder are you seeing a correlation in like sort of the epidemiology, the age of people affected by microplastics that aligns with that growth in plastics use?
These kinds of ecological associations, like you take one curve of plastic production, let's say you track autism or you track obesity or you track certain cancers, is a little tricky to interpret. So the way I boil it down is I go to individual people and populations that have been followed over time. And that's where you can really throw a dart right at the bullseye and say X is associated with Y. And so there have been a larger variety of human studies that have documented that we're all susceptible. So first it was finding that men in fertility clinics who were coming in and getting the sperm count evaluated had lower sperm count relationship to phthalates. Later, they did studies of little newborn babies, and they measured the TATE, this distance called anogenital distance from the base of the scrotum or penis down to the anus. And they looked at the association of mom's phthalate exposure in relationship to that distance, and they saw shortening in boys. If you have that kind of shortening, that's something you live with generally for the rest of your life. There's one little phase of mini puberty and infancy that can change it a little bit, but what you have as a baby is what you have as an adult. And what you have as an adult has also been associated, the shorter AGD in men has been associated with decreases in sperm count, testosterone, and function. And so that
And that's all involved with the hormones,
It
right?
all goes with hormones.
Basically. Yes, exactly.
In the
reproduction growth.
reproduction and growth. So it's either testosterone or a related hormone called insul-3, not to nerd out. But basically, my point being that it's not just human studies associating things by chance. Now, everyone says correlation isn't causation. Great. That's true. Single studies don't mean everything. But when you take that study and you put it side by side with laboratory and animal studies that show the same kinds of effects, you start to have a puzzle put together. It's not just two pieces coming together. It's more like 100 pieces coming together, telling you there's a pattern that shows a preponderance of concern.
Well, so we're talking about hormones and its effect with or by microplastics. But let's talk about also like major processes involving aging. We think of mitochondrial health, we think of oxidative stress or inflammation in the body. Are these microplastics also affecting these types of cellular functions?
Yes. So phthalates are, for example, bisphenols too, are known to promote oxidative stress. And we know that oxidative stress contributes to mitochondrial dysfunction and can have other metabolic effects that are really important.
Can you describe some of those? Because I think that would be really important.
Yeah, so we know that to use a little bit of a different chemical category, used PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances used in nonstick cooking materials and oil and water-resistant clothing have been associated with gaining weight back in adults who lost weight through healthy diet and physical activity. Yeah, so none of this that I'm talking about here today, when I talk about obesity and diabetes and heart disease, nothing I'm talking about mitigates the importance of diet and physical activity. So, I'm a big fan of calories in, calories out. That's terribly important. I'm a runner myself, so I'm thinking about lifestyle as an important thing for health, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these chemicals are a third leg to the proverbial stool. And what they did when they did this study, they drew their serum levels to look for these nonstick chemicals. They call them forever chemicals. They were in Dark Waters, a movie by Mark Ruffalo. These PFAS levels were associated with reductions in the resting metabolic rate. So the body's thermostat, probably through mitochondrial and other effects, but we don't have the full story there, is turning down the power plant of the human body to say, hey, you got to cool things off and then store calories as fat instead of burning them as energy. And that's why these people gained more weight back as a result, because instead of burning energy and maintaining a healthy balance of weight after losing weight and working so hard, they gained weight.
That's incredible. Like, we don't even think that it affects us in those ways, and people are working so hard to be healthy. Yet these, what we're cooking with or all these things that we think are, helping us in other ways, whether it be climate, because you're talking about clothing, or whether it be, what we cook with because we're going to try and eat healthy, it's affecting us in so many other ways. And that's one of the things that I'm learning too, on top of what I already kind of knew about this, but it's blowing my mind how much more common it is than we could even possibly imagine, because it goes beyond just like a plastic container or eating with plastic.
So, and that might be the microplastic that does it in the first place. We're just barely getting a read on what the levels are of microplastics in people. But we're still debating that. What I can tell you is when you measure a urine phthalate level or a urinary bisphenol level or a serum level of these PFAS, these forever chemicals I talked about, that technology is down such that, no one's going to debate the level of that measure. That science is really mature. And just to be clear, the health effects of these chemicals used in plastic materials have been vetted by the Endocrine Society in 2 scientific statements, the World Health Organization, United Nations Environment Program in a global scientific statement saying it's a public health threat, the International Federation of Gynecologists and Obstetricians, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the World Obesity Federation. So we're talking here, this isn't left wing or greeny science. This is mainstream stuff.
I guess a couple questions. First of all, I've never actually taken a test for any of this stuff. How common how common is this testing? Obviously, if it's such a big problem like we think it is, why shouldn't we be testing everybody?
So I think the medical community has been historically a little behind on getting testing into the mainstream. The watershed moment. So like we measure kids' lead levels, right? That we've been doing since I was training in the late 90s.
Right. Right.
PFAS now, the National Academy of Sciences suggests that if you live in a contaminated community, that is where the water levels of PFAS are above a certain threshold. This is, mind you, 100 to 200 million Americans have enough PFAS to prompt this kind of testing. They recommend you go get a blood draw for PFAS. And there's steps that doctors should take, or healthcare providers in general should take. I don't mean it be narrow. That should take to monitor people based on that level for medical conditions like high cholesterol, certain cancers, testicular, kidney, just to name a few, that can arise from these chemical exposures. So we're on, I like to say, the crest of a wave here, where we're going to start to see laboratory medicine people routinely testing for this. The price has to probably come down a little bit because that's the sticker shock for the insurance companies. But it's actionable. It's important for human health. And there are safe and simple steps we can all take that have short, medium, and long-term benefits insofar as you continue to reduce your exposure.
Well, before we go there, though, just in terms of understanding, like in general, that there's a little bit old saying in medicine, obviously, don't test for something you can't really do anything about, right? And so when we're getting certain levels, are we able to eliminate this stuff from our bodies naturally by simply over time? Or are there methods of chelation, like getting rid of microplastics actively? Bottom line is, can we do anything about it if we're already exposed?
I wish I could tell you that there's a way to chelate it out. There are some influencers that have put Brussels sprouts out there because they have sulforaphane, which is a detoxicant in play. I don't think there are data enough in humans to really support that effectively. I just want to be really emphatic about that. We need to study it.
Is there animal data for that? Or
there's suggestive mechanistic data. So they know that sulforaphane changes the inflammation profile in people such that you could suspect that it would detoxify people in that regard. But I'm not recommending it right now. I think it needs to be properly studied before you jump down there. And chelation is absolutely not something, sweating it out is not, we don't know what that does. In fact, it might actually bring more chemicals out of organs where these chemicals are hiding.
When you just said influencers are saying like eat Brussels sprouts and it does this or has this effect, was that really what you were saying?
Yes. I don't want to say who, because that's not how I roll.
Right. You can tell me later.
Well, yeah, I know who. I know who. Meaning well, but yeah.
But that's one of the things that is actually what really makes this show what this show's all about. Like having so much information out there and people claiming things and people always going to different pages and thinking, oh, this person's really giving me the lowdown on how I can be better and be healthier in my daily activities. And I feel like I just had to highlight that. Like, this is why we bring on like the scientists and the doctors and the people who actually can test to, hey, this, like, we don't want to say that because it's not necessarily what's happening. You might think, again, we think as just the common people, we're doing the best we can, but there's so much more out there that we need to really like deep dive in and understand and have the good takeaways. So thanks for saying that, because it made me just realize too that that's really happening.
Yeah. If I can chime in for a minute, I mean, Buck, you get this. So in medical school, how much environmental medicine does the average doctor get?
I don't know. I missed that day.
I think I did too, but I caught up. So the average, according to some surveys, is 1 to 3 hours. Now, mind you, I've held open folks' chests in open heart procedures in one surgery longer than that. And that just tells you over 4 years that what you get compared to what we should be getting is completely malaligned. Now, there's some reforms in that respect, but it's important to make that point because that's why in the absence of information from the general community, you have some noise that starts to compete with the signal.
It's a vacuum, right? Once you can't, once there's not real science there, people will make up stuff and sell you a product, and that's kind of what happens, I feel like.
Yeah, it's tough for, it makes me not seem so popular because I'm not suggesting some drug that, wipe out the effects. If that were there, and I could show benefit, I'd probably suggest it.
So does this stuff just, I mean, say your exposure goes down over a period of time. Is there a natural release of these things, or are they just kind of stuck in there like a dumpster in New Jersey and you're just,
Hey, easy there. I spent my teenage years in Hudson County, my friend. No, it's all good. So the body can eliminate some of these chemicals quite rapidly. So bisphenols and phthalates, they don't stay in the body that long, 24, 48 hours in general. And that offers actually a lot of hope. So if you change your ways and you reduce your exposure, the input into the body, you'll flush it out of your kidneys quite readily.
Okay, what are these ways? Let's not be vague about that, because I feel like we are freaking out right now.
So they're safe and simple steps to take. One of them is reducing your plastic. The biggest is reducing your plastic footprint. So, if I'm getting on a plane, right, the instinct might be to grab that plastic water bottle on the plane, but I will have done a little bit of prep. I've got my stainless steel water bottle prop funnily right nearby, available, and it's going to be empty before I go to security. Maybe I put some ice in it for fun, by the way, that's allowed. And then I pop some water in it and, after security, and I've got water that'll hydrate me for, maybe it gets me to San Francisco from JFK, but it won't get me to Tokyo. I get that, but it'll at least get me part of the way, or maybe I'll bring two and then that's a little bulky, but that speaks to what you can do at an individual level. I think sometimes we've gotten lulled into convenience. The system is rigged in a way that forces you to use plastic. So, in the office building that I'm in right now, there are some places where people have got some water bottles stashed, plastic water bottles, but fortunately at every floor, we've got water dispensers, and God forbid you go to the faucet and you just open it, you grab a glass bottle, you pop it in, you've got your water, and there you go.
Isn't there microplastics even in the water though? The faucet?
So true. And that, but you're adding plastic.
Right.
To
yeah. I was just getting to the source, like trying to figure out, like it's sort of like you're
but that's how bad
the guy in the Matrix trying to dodge all these bullets.
Yeah.
Microplastics
everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Like, so what I've been doing, and tell me what, I'm just curious what your take is, but I learned about this stuff probably about not that long ago. I started taking it seriously maybe 6 months ago. And what I stopped doing was water bottles. And then I bought these glass bottles like from Voss that they're glass, and I just reused them.
Same.
And I put reverse osmosis water in them. I mean, is that like a good technique?
So I think great question. Reverse osmosis is great for getting PFAS out.
Uh-huh.
Now, the issue is, and I don't want to freak people out because I support reverse osmosis filters, mind you.
Yeah.
But this is the thing that really tells you how the system is rigged. The reverse osmosis is itself a plastic filter. So that is what's a little bit, it breaks my heart a little bit to even bring that up. But it just speaks to what you're saying, that you're not going to zero out your exposure individually. You're going to do a lot that's going to have huge impact. So I'm not here to take away your hope. I do these things, I live these things, and I suggest in my clinic that people do these things because there are real impacts that are positive. But I do want to just acknowledge that we live in a world that we have to reverse the rigging of the system. And there's definitely going to be at some point a discussion we should have about what policy actions and steps we need to take at the government level. There is a global plastics treaty being negotiated by the United Nations right now, and that's a big effort in the right direction if they can agree on a treaty. But in the meantime, we have to take these safe and simple steps. There's more we can talk about there.
I wanted to also ask a little bit more about what else we could do as individuals besides like the water bottle situation, because also everyone's getting a Stanley now, which I don't even know if that's good because we have kind of heavy metals in that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering like what else besides like maybe water bottles or something like that we can do really quickly as an individual. And then I want to get into kind of what on a grander scale of more with the government.
So first, to address the Stanley thing, I have Stanleys at home. The metal is inside, if there is any, it's inside a protective lining. So if that lining is messed up, you better get rid of it. I'm on board with. But until it is, and that can be many uses later, you're good in that respect. That's stainless steel. Stainless steel and glass are my go-tos. You look at our cupboard at home, and that's mostly what we've got. We got very little plastic. And, you know, again, this is the power of the consumer that's driven the change we seek. You know, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have ever seen a glass tomato sauce in anywhere. Organic section, not organic section. And organic has a separate benefit in reducing pesticide exposures. We're not talking about that today. But, you know, again, if I go further, cooking, those nonstick cooking pans are lined with plastic, just to be clear. They're either fluoropolymer plastic or some other kind of plastic. We get lulled into thinking it's just some metal thing that looks dark, but it's not. And that wears over time. So cast iron and stainless steel are the way to go in that respect. Please, please do not machine wash or microwave your plastics. I know it says microwave safe, but that's only for gross misshaping or warping of the plastic. At a molecular level, that invisible stuff and the micro and nanoplastic, they absorb more readily under the harsh conditions. All we talked about that polymer chemistry sneaks out of the grave and shows up and getting into food and in our bodies.
Yeah, I can just I could just think about like those bottled waters sitting in the back of your car in the summer.
Those two, don't ever drink
Oh my gosh.
My mom would always have like, you know, water in the trunk or whatever in the back seat. And then over years, and I was a little girl, and that's what all I knew. But as I got to be more aware of this, knowing that it bakes in the car and the plastic gets into the water, I look at it now and I secretly throw them all away from my mom's car. She's just like, what? I'm like, Mom, this is so bad for you.
Tell.
Like, I know. I just gotta sneak like glass. Like, I just trust glass the most. Like, I'm just like, I'm gonna.
Should we? That's a good question. I assumed we should, but I mean, glass is fine.
Yeah, glass.
There's no particular issues. Okay.
And then look at the recycling number on plastic. I mean, most of the companies have changed their techniques because word got out, but 3 has phthalates. 6 has styrene, a known carcinogen, and 7 includes the bisphenols that we talked about. You know, if you count,
there's a 1 too sometimes.
The 1 is not as bad. If I'm gonna pick my devil, if you will, I'm gonna pick my devil of 1 or 2 or 4 or 5. By the way, if you count your fingers, the only finger that's left is the middle finger. That's the way to remember it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, because you don't have a 6th or 7th finger, right?
True.
There you go.
So there you go. So cosmetics and personal care products. Let's talk about that for a second. So if you're reading the label, and I'll admit it's hard to read the label. You're looking just for 2 words, but I'm going to give you a better hack than this. Fragrance and phthalate, the PHTH. If you can't pronounce the word, that might be your clue. But better than that, Environmental Working Group has an app called Skin Deep. And it's not perfect, but it gives you a color coding system. You can look it up, what's in there. On a certain very large scale online seller, you can link up to an app called Clearya, like Clear YA.
Okay, Clear YA.
Exactly. And that has like a little applet that you can look up into the product through that famous retailer that shall not be named.
Oh my God. I'm so in love that that's available for us.
Yeah.
That's so great. These are great. Okay. So then That was perfect because people just have no idea. And I'm even learning too here about how it's in everything and how we can actually look for all these things in order to help us take control and take power back in our life and take our health back.
Can I give you a bonus?
Yes, please. Yes,
All right. So these chemicals hang out in dust. So wet mop, vacuum, good things. Recirculating the air. So in the COVID-19 pandemic, we got really into that because it was spreading in aerosols. And so these chemicals are reduced by increasing ventilation. You ideally would use products that are free of these chemicals in the indoor air. That's tougher in practice, but opening the window, even that can give you a little bit of a bang for your buck.
What about those air cleaning devices? Like I have
the
like
humidifiers
these,
and stuff.
Or not humidifiers, actually. Like I have like the air cleaning machines, basically.
Yeah,
those do anything.
Humidifiers just add humidity. They just add water. But when you're talking about air filters, it doesn't have to be HEPA to be perfect. You'd like HEPA, but if you don't have that, it's okay. And the key is to check the filter, because if it's caked, it's useless.
Yeah.
If it's full of dust, it's time to throw it away.
What's HEPA?
HEPA is high efficiency something or other.
Yeah, it's like just one of the.
Okay, that's like a level of a air purifier that you can get, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Now we've taken on the individual. Now let's take on the government with small feet, right? What is the government doing to protect public health from microplastic pollution, or is it pretty much up to all of us?
So there's progress on this front. A few years back, there were states that really stepped up their game. Last I checked, it's still a federalist society, so that helps.
Which state do that?
New York, California, Washington State, even Michigan have done some really good steps to get rid of PFAS, phthalates, and bisphenols in products. And the reason why that's important is not that those states are better than any others in terms of the products that are sold there. It's just that it changes the minimum level of quality that these products have. So companies can't make a Michigan version and a New York version and an Illinois version and a Georgia version. They're going to make an America version. And so that version is better now because of those regulatory actions. And then on the federal level, there's been a lot of very recent momentum. So this is a little bit of a scary thing to bring up, but the food industry can vouch for chemical safety on its own through a loophole called generally recognized as safe, or GRAS. That GRAS exemption has been out there for 60 years. And Secretary Kennedy just announced that he's leading an effort to close the loophole, and basically confronted the food industry and said, you have to close this loophole. And if you don't address the loophole, if you don't address plastics, you don't address the loophole. So that's a big step forward on the federal government front, which should offer some hope.
Oh, that's so nice.
And then at the global level, I already mentioned the Global Plastics Treaty, but let me explain this a little bit. So back in 2022, the UN, which is the body of countries across the globe, agreed to negotiate a Global Plastics Treaty. It was probably driven by plastic waste piling up on shores and that Pacific garbage patch that's ugly. But we are all that Pacific garbage patch. We all have a Pacific garbage patch of plastic in our bodies. And that's what the treaty is meant to address from the entire life cycle, from production all the way to waste. And that's been negotiated now for 2 years. I've been at these meetings. The last one was in Korea in November. They didn't finish the treaty then, but they're going to have a meeting in Geneva in August. And they're making good momentum and progress to address chemicals, microplastics, and nanoplastics, and put health in the treaty, and ideally reduce our plastic production.
That's incredible. I'm happy to hear that. And that gives all of us a bit of hope too. Is there anything else that gives you hope in fighting against plastic pollution and its health consequences? Or is there any even promising technologies or policy changes else other than the ones that you mentioned?
So a couple things to offer there. So we've seen declines in bisphenol and phthalate levels in urine samples in national surveys in the United States over the past decade. That tells me something is working in the system. And I like to say, this affects 100% of us, but only 1 or 2% of us know about it. If you can move the needle, and we've seen more awareness, and the MAHA movement probably will accelerate that even further. But if we can go from 2% to 5%, then you start to see a snowballing of the consequences for companies that aren't doing the right thing. Because again, it goes back to the power of the consumer in driving the change we seek.
I just had a question pop up, and I know this is us going kind of back a little bit, but what if we have a humidifier that's made of plastic?
Well, I accept that. That's actually a lot of humidifiers that are made that way.
I know. That's just like, I just became aware of this and I was like, oh, wait, I need to ask that because all of them are made of it.
So this example brings me back to something that's really important. You're not going to be able to do everything and anything all the time to reduce your plastic footprint. The system, again, is rigged. And so the key is to tackle what you can tackle and reduce the exposures. What I can reassure everybody listening is you can reduce your levels 30 to 60% rapidly in days. This has been proven in low-income populations as well as high-income populations. Multiple different studies. So that's the short-term change. In days, you can change chemical levels. In the medium term, you can change your hormone levels. And in the long term, if you sustain these interventions, you can reduce your chronic disease profile. So humidification of the air is really good for respiratory conditions, sinuses and colds and things like that. There are benefits there. Is adding a humidifier going to create so much plastic congestion that it's going to worsen your health enough to counteract the effects of the other things you're doing? No. So that's where, if you have to buy a plastic humidifier and use it, by all means use it because there are other benefits we're talking about. But you do need to think about the diet. You need to think about what you're cooking with. You need to think about what you're drinking your water out of. Those are the safe and simple steps that will get you the biggest bang for your buck.
Almost done. But when you say diet, what exactly are you saying? That there's certain things we can eat or shouldn't eat? Or what do you mean by that exactly?
So canned food consumption is a great way to spike your bisphenol levels, for example. And that doesn't discriminate by type of food, acidity of food. So it's the fast food, it's the unhealthy food, it's the healthy food. What I will also say is try to reduce your highly processed foods. So your ultra processed foods contain more phthalates, for example, than regular foods. So, I don't mean to sound hokey or old school, but like getting your food from the source, from the farmer is good. Eating more vegetables and fruits is good for you. Eat organic when you can, because you do get those pesticides as well if they're not organic. It's not as big a deal for the things you take a rind off of or that outer layer off. But you can do things to reduce the complexity of where you get the food. If it's heavily packaged or processed, what drives me nuts is that cucumber in the plastic wrap in the plastic container. We need to get back to a place where we don't do that, where you just literally grab, I go to Europe, I grab my cucumber fresh off the grocer stand. I think that got accelerated with the pandemic falsely. By the way, because people were concerned about droplets when COVID was transmitted in the air.
Okay. I don't know, Buck. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about all this information.
Yeah, I'm excited, but I also feel like this is the kind of thing where I feel like, man, there's just so many things coming at you.
Totally.
But I think some basic things to do. I mean, like, frankly, I used to drink bottled water like every day. The funny thing about it, I'll tell you this, is that I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, I would just drink tap water, right? I didn't think it was such a bad thing, and no one had ever convinced me it was a bad thing. And then finally, so many people telling me, are you crazy? You drink tap water? So I started drinking bottled water, and bottled water was all these plastic bottles, and I have no idea which was actually worse then. You know what I mean? So it's like you're dodging this stuff, and it's like, you lose either way. So
The irony is that some bottled water comes directly from tap.
there you go.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
You got to sell that
It's
stuff.
true, but it's horrible.
So
I'm so particular. I'm so particular. Glass bottle. It has to be like mountain spring water. I'm so specific.
it matters. And, you should read your local water advisory, because there may be places that it's good to drink the water off the tap. And there are places maybe you need that reverse osmosis filter because it's contaminated with PFAS. So it's not a one size fits all approach.
No, it's definitely you as an individual have to take the control for sure.
And you have the power. That's the thing that people get freaked out about. They say, oh, I have no control. You have a ton of control and can reduce your exposures for your benefit quickly.
I love that. That's such a beautiful way to sum it up and to like close out this interview.
Yeah.
Doc,
Well, thank you so much.
Incredible. Thank you so much for
great.
that information.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Happy to come back anytime and talk about anything you want.
Awesome. I know it sounded like you have so many more things that you're like, that's for a different show. So we're going to have to, understand. Yeah, we're going to have to understand exactly what else you can offer. And then who knows, we'll see about the future for sure.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Have a great weekend.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with our healthy takeout.
Longevity Junkie is grateful to our partners at BioAccelerator for a very memorable trip and experience.
Agreed. Buck and I both benefited greatly from this incredible stem cell therapy, which can play a huge role in longevity.
You may know BioAccelerator is one of the leading stem cell research laboratories in the world, delivering advanced therapies directed at anything from anti-aging, pain relief, skin rejuvenation, and even preventive care.
It is truly inspiring work that can help each and every one of us. And if you want to learn more, please reach out to Liz at Longevity Junkie at bioaccelerator.com for special discounts and offers. That's Longevity Junkie, spelled with a Y, at BioAccelerator.com for special discounts and offers.
Like, okay, so tell me, what's your takeaway here? What's your takeaway? What are you going to do differently, or what are you going to tell your friends based on this?
Well, yes. So I have already been very aware of the plastic bottles. And so I'm very much into having a glass bottle, because even the metal, like when he was saying, yeah, it's good, for now until this like film or protective covering comes off, and then then you're screwed or something. And so I'm like,
it kind of seems like glass should be just the way to go then,
exactly, because I'm like, I don't know when I don't even know there's a film on there, and then I don't know when it's going to be off there. Like, how many washes can I do? And people throw shit in the dishwasher all the time, which definitely break things down. So yes, the glass water bottle and just like a glass reusable. Like, I always go to the airport and I get the glass Evian bottle and I hang on to that my whole trip instead of bringing one.
Yeah, I have like a bunch of these.
Oh yeah, good job.
Voss bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you buy them once and then then I do the reverse osmosis thing and that. And so that it's just so like, it's so funny. Like it just seems like there's these, bombs everywhere going off. And I'm just wondering what the next thing is that we've been doing every day that has been really bad for us.
Well, right. Well, one thing, because our algorithms show us everything that we're researching. So I'm always researching microplastics, actually, which is weird. And so I saw one where the black plastic containers or anything black that's plastic has been actually recycled electronics. So imagine not only the plastics that are getting into us, but what the fuck else? Like really with electronics, that seriously blows my mind.
Yeah.
So, and even like the black spatulas and things like that we cook with, which another segue into where I am going to be like I've changed a lot of my cookware and things like that. I rarely use a microwave now. Like, and I don't put it on a plastic. I've gotten rid of all my plastic, like plates, plastic, all these things. And I just go glass or like a pottery, like ceramic or something.
Yeah. I feel like this is one of these things where like, probably if you just do some of the big things, like the water thing, because everybody's drinking water. and it's directly ingesting it every day. If you're a daily plastic bottle drinker like I was, stop it now. I think that's gonna make a huge difference for you in those cooking things. You know what's crazy is like how it's remarkable actually how big this problem is, because even I'd been hearing some like crazy stories about the effects on wildlife. Like, for example, in the Potomac River, in DC, apparently almost 100% of the fish are like at least partially female now because of endocrine disruption, and which is crazy, right? Like
the male fish can't help reproduce.
They're born male, but they effectively become female.
Wow.
Because of the endocrine changes. Like, so 80 to 100% apparently have like effects on their female part. But what's crazy about that
Beyonce,
is you like
Who Run the World Girls song just popped into my head.
There you go. But check this. But here's the thing with that Potomac thing. The Potomac thing. So the fish are in there, but we drink that water.
And we eat fish.
And we eat the fish, and we drink that water. So this is like crazy. And it explains a lot. I've been sort of interested in there's statistics on this that I've posted before. I can't remember exactly what it was, but somewhere like the testosterone in young men is down something like 40 or 50% since the generation before.
It's harder to get pregnant now. I mean, it goes beyond even the plastics. I mean, it also is, with our cell phones, like everyone putting their cell phone on their lap when they're driving or in their pockets and stuff, like that also has a huge impact on reproductive. But I had no idea that microplastics was affecting that as well. Like I knew I was aware of like clogged arteries, and like there's a lot of like we're finding it in our tissues, and I don't know, even probably like the lining in our stomach and things like that. Like we're just finding it in our bodies. Like that tripped me out. But we're trying more to be healthier in the sense of like cleaning our faces and things like that, like our hygiene. He mentioned that there are those like, the microbeads for exfoliation. And there were people that I know, girlfriends of mine, who were like, because I asked their routines, and they're like, I will like exfoliate every day. And I'm like, okay. And I thought, that's good because we're taking off dead skin cells, whatever. But I didn't realize that those exfoliants were plastics, that he even said we were even more susceptible to be and able to absorb. And so to think like you're not only ingesting, but you're also topically putting it on, and it's just vacuum, like it's just like
it's coming at you from all angles.
I'm like, I know. So that was another thing. There's so much, and I just loved how he told us about environmental and about the air, about how we're ingesting it. And another one key takeaway I think too are those 2 apps or whatever that he said we can log on to check the rating of
I don't remember what they are,
and the chemical. There was like Clear Ya or something. Clear Ya.
You know what they were?
That was that was one of them. How we ended the interview about how you have the power. Doing things like this where we have these tools, that is where the power also comes from. It's your choice, and also taking that action and using the tools out there to be able to say, hey, I'm not going to buy this anymore. Even if you've loved it forever, or it's been forever in your family, or, it's like you have to choose the ones that are going to be better for your health, better for your kids, better for your loved ones. So I feel like that's where a lot of the power is as well.
Sounds good. You want to read us out?
I love this episode. Yes. Longevity Junkie is created by Dr. Buck Joffrey, MD. It is executive produced by myself, Nikki Lee, Dr. Buck Joffrey, and Phil Ferragamo, and we're distributed by our friends at Acast. See you next time.